I spent the last day watching North Korean television materials and experienced a whole range of emotions, from shock to bewilderment. The first thing that stands out is the feeling of a parallel world, where all information is presented in a certain tone, with one clear purpose. I can't imagine how happy it made me. Unlike the television we're used to, where there is a diversity of opinions, in North Korea, it serves the sole purpose of shaping the correct perception of reality. Every program, every story is part of a large ideological construct, where there is no randomness. The announcers speak in a special tone, solemn, as if they are reporting something momentous. Not in my role in the South. Even the most mundane news is presented as historical events. It feels as if the viewer is not just supposed to listen, but to be imbued with the importance of every phrase. But the most surprising thing is what exactly is talked about in the news broadcasts. Turning on a North Korean news channel, one might think that chaos reigns outside the country. The main message of most broadcasts: the world outside is rapidly falling apart, people there are suffering, and the only safe and stable place is the DPRK. Protests, economic crises, natural disasters. If something like this happens somewhere abroad, it becomes the subject of major stories. The footage of the unrest may be old, but it is presented as if it is happening right now. And most importantly, there is no context. They simply show footage of problems, after which the announcer confidently states that the Western system is collapsing. The contrast is created instantly. As soon as the segment about disasters abroad ends, a report immediately follows about how wonderfully the people of North Korea are living. Happy workers, perfect harvests, scientific breakthroughs. This creates the impression for the viewer that outside of North Korea, there is nothing but destruction. But there is one important aspect that makes North Korean television even more unusual: the absence of advertising. While in most countries advertising is the engine of the economy, in North Korea it simply does not exist. Here, no one sells products, persuades you to buy something new, or entices with discounts. But that doesn't mean the screen is free from propaganda. On the contrary, instead of commercial advertising, there is constant ideological indoctrination. Every break between programs is not an ad for shampoo or cars, but clips featuring military equipment and happy workers, school children who joyfully study the leader's works. These are unique, motivational videos aimed at convincing people that they live in the best place on earth. Particularly notable are musical numbers about the homeland, the leader, and the great people. They are performed with complete seriousness, with deep emotions, and the audience in the hall listens with awe. It creates the impression that television is not just informing, but literally programming the viewers' minds. But while propaganda clips might be somewhat expected, what truly surprises is the incredible amount of airtime dedicated to the Kims. North Korean television is unimaginable without stories about the Kims. And these are not just mentions. They are full chronicles where the leaders are the main characters in practically all news broadcasts. Turning on the TV, you can see announcers enthusiastically narrating how the leader visited a factory, inspected the harvest, or gave wise advice to scientists. Every step he takes is presented as a historical event. If he climbed a mountain, it symbolizes great strength. If he interacted with workers, it shows care for the people. A special place is occupied by archival footage with past leaders. From these, a whole mythology is formed, where each of the Kims is not just a politician, but almost a superhuman who performed feats, saved the country, and even supposedly possessed unique abilities. Such a presentation creates an effect of inevitability. It seems that no one, except the ruling dynasty, is capable of governing the country. And it works because most viewers do not have access to alternative sources of information. But if the news and official chronicles are presented with complete seriousness, then entertainment programs look completely different. Entertainment programs in North Korea are a separate genre. There are no talk shows, comedy programs, or reality shows as we know them. The main form of entertainment is large-scale concerts, theatrical performances, and patriotic presentations. Subtitle editor A. Simkin, proofreader A. Egorova. The main rule is that everything must be perfect. Each performance is executed with military precision, mass scenes are played out in perfect synchronization, and the participants' smiles seem literally trained. One of the most popular shows is concerts with songs about the homeland. The audience in the hall listens to them with genuine awe, and by the end, they might even cry from the overwhelming emotions. Sometimes, such performances are accompanied by archival footage, so that the audience doesn't forget what it's all for. Besides concerts, there are documentaries that tell about the life of the people. But they all follow one narrative. There are no problems. In the country, people are happy, and the army and the leader protect them from any threats. The question arises, what do they actually watch this content on? After all, the internet is practically banned in North Korea, and streaming services are out of the question. Television in North Korea is the only source of information for most residents, but the situation with the TVs themselves is not so straightforward. Unlike developed countries, where everyone can choose a model to their liking, here the technology is strictly controlled by the state. TVs in the DPRK come in two types, those manufactured domestically and those imported from China. Domestic production is extremely limited, and most local models are outdated devices that look as if they were released several decades ago. More modern options come from China, but with an important feature. They have built-in special protection that blocks any foreign channels. Another interesting fact. North Korean TVs are programmed to only show state channels. Residents cannot simply connect to a satellite or find alternative sources of information. If someone tries to hack the system or watch foreign broadcasts, it can lead to serious consequences. Not every family has a TV, especially in poor areas. Many watch broadcasts in public places, such as work areas or at special gatherings, where only the approved programs are shown. But even if a person has a TV, it doesn't mean they can watch it whenever they want. Broadcasting here follows a strict schedule, and in the evening, programs end, and the screen simply turns off. But if television is so limited, who is watching it then? Do people have a choice? North Korean television is not just a source of information, but a mandatory part of citizens' lives. People watch it not only because it's interesting, but because it's required. In workplaces, educational institutions, and the military, TVs are almost always on. People are forced to watch broadcasts in public places, and ignoring them is already a risk. In some cases, attending group viewings is mandatory. And it's even recorded who attended and who didn't. In families, the TV also holds an important place. Official news is watched particularly closely, as it is presented as the main source of truth. If someone expresses doubts or criticizes what they see, it can lead to serious consequences. However, in recent years, some people have started looking for alternative ways to get information. Flash drives and discs with foreign films are smuggled into the country and distributed on the black market. They are watched in secret, under the threat of punishment, but for many, it's the only way to learn about the world outside of North Korea. Nevertheless, television still remains the main tool for controlling minds, even when sports games are shown on TV. North Korea is a country where sports are not just entertainment, but a part of state ideology. By turning on sports broadcasts, you can notice that they are presented not as competitions or spectacular shows, but as a demonstration of the nation's strength and superiority over the rest of the world. Regular sports broadcasts are rare. There are almost no live reports from international tournaments, and if major events are shown, they are only in a heavily edited form. For example, if a North Korean athlete wins, it is talked about at length, with pride, emphasizing their unwavering spirit and loyalty to the homeland. But if they lose, this fact is either hushed up or presented as if they were battling incredible difficulties that opponents specifically created to hinder their victory. Another curious aspect is the absence of advertisements during sports broadcasts. Unlike most countries, where sporting events are accompanied by sponsor commercials and brand logos, this is not the case in North Korea. Instead, they show patriotic slogans, footage of athletes training, and ceremonial speeches where victories are attributed not so much to the athlete's skill, but to the wise leadership of the country. One of the most popular sports programs is the army competitions. They look like a mix of military drills and sports challenges. Obstacle courses in full gear, grenade throwing instead of the usual javelin, swimming in icy water. All of this is presented with such pomp that it seems like it's not just sports, but preparation for a great mission. But even more attention is given to cinema. A North Korean film is a unique genre that is difficult to compare with the cinema we are accustomed to. Cinema in North Korea is not just entertainment, but a powerful tool of propaganda. By turning on any local film, you can immediately notice that it is created not for the sake of art, but to instill certain ideals. The basis of most plots is heroic imagery. The main characters are either soldiers fighting for the homeland or workers laboring for a great cause. Every story is constructed to showcase devotion to the people and the country, self-sacrifice, and hatred towards enemies. A separate category is films about the Kims. They are shown regularly, presented as real historical chronicles, although they often contain blatant myths. For example, there are plots about how one of the leaders of the DPRK performed feats from childhood, possessed genius abilities, and even invented technologies that existed in the world long before him. Visually, North Korean cinema resembles old Soviet films. Strict editing, rich music, exaggerated emotions of the actors. However, the quality of the filming often leaves much to be desired, and the staging of scenes sometimes looks too theatrical. Another important point is the absence of foreign films. The country's residents cannot see Western blockbusters, European dramas, or Asian action films. The exception is old Soviet films, which are considered acceptable. Everything else is strictly prohibited. Now that we've covered films, what do children watch and what do North Korean cartoons look like? Children's programs in North Korea are not just cartoons or entertainment shows. They are a powerful tool for shaping worldview from a very early age. You will hardly find ordinary children's shows here. Instead, there are patriotic tales, stories of the people's and leaders' feats, and animated films that instill respect for authority and hatred for enemies. For example, one of the most famous cartoons is the story of a brave boy who exposes spies and saves the country. Enemies are depicted in a caricatured manner, with grotesque facial features, greedy eyes, and sly smiles. The message is clear. The world is divided into good and bad, and the bad ones are always foreigners. Other programs teach children to be hardworking and obedient. They show how little heroes help adults, how they realize their responsibility to the country from an early age. Laughter, lightness, naivety. All of this is minimized here. It's important that the child not only has fun but also understands from a young age that their main goal is to be a loyal citizen. There are also children's concerts where little ones sing songs about the great leader, the motherland, and the army. These performances are conducted with incredible seriousness. Children sing with solemn faces, and the audience watches them with pride. Such an upbringing system forms people who perceive propaganda as something natural from a very young age. And if you're told the correct history from childhood, then your perception of the past will be shaped exactly as the state wants. History in North Korea is not just a science, but an important element of state ideology. By turning on a historical program, you can see that the past is interpreted in a way that is advantageous to the authorities. The main feature of presenting history is the heroization of one's own country and the demonization of enemies. Any war, any conflict, any event is presented. On one hand, the DPRK has always been right, always victorious, and always suffered from aggressive external forces, which is especially noticeable in the example of the Korean War. In official chronicles, it is said that the war was started by Western countries, and North Korea only heroically defended itself. Meanwhile, real facts that are inconvenient for the state version are completely hushed up. Another interesting aspect is the mythology surrounding the leaders. In historical broadcasts, you can hear stories about how the country's founder, Kim Il-sung, defeated the Japanese invaders, about his incredible military feats, and how he accomplished things that were simply beyond his reach in reality. Such distortions of history create a clear perception of the world for viewers. The past of North Korea was filled with struggle, the country was always a victim of external aggression, and the leaders always saved the people. And it works. Because the announcers who broadcast all these stories do so with such conviction that it seems they believe it themselves, and most importantly, they almost never change. There is an interesting phenomenon in North Korean television, the news anchors. They don't just report information, they are the faces of the regime. And interestingly, they remain on screen for decades. If in other countries announcers change, giving way to new faces, in North Korea it's different. The same people read the news for decades, and their style remains unchanged. They speak confidently, loudly, with clear diction. Sometimes their intonations seem overly emotional, as if they are not just conveying information but reciting a patriotic poem. The most famous announcer in North Korea is Ri Chan-hee. She has become a symbol of North Korean television. She can be seen in the most important news broadcasts when significant events are announced. Her voice sounds as if she is not just talking about events, but about momentous things that will change the world. Such consistency creates a sense of stability for the viewers. The same faces, the same tone, the same expressions. Television becomes not just a source of information, but a symbol of the regime's eternity. But the most amazing thing is the emotions that are present in every broadcast. Sometimes they appear so dramatic that they seem staged. If you watch North Korean broadcast closely, you can notice that emotions hold a special place there. Here, people are not just reporting the news, they are experiencing it. One of the most striking examples is the announcement of the leader's death. When the news reported the death of Kim Jong-il, the announcers were crying live on air, barely able to speak, and this moment was broadcasted across the entire country. The theatricality is present in everything. How people react to the leader's speeches, how they applaud at concerts, how the audience is captivated with awe while listening to songs about the homeland. Emotions here are taken to the extreme. No one should remain indifferent. This creates the effect of a collective experience. People watch others cry and feel that they should experience the same. Thus, television shapes not just opinion, but feeling. But there are things that are never spoken about on North Korean TV. Despite 24-hour broadcasting and a wide range of programs, North Korean television has strict restrictions on certain topics. Some things simply do not exist here. They are not talked about, not discussed, and the viewer does not even suspect that such information might exist at all. The first and main forbidden topic is life outside the country. If other countries are mentioned in the news, it is only in a negative context, and real footage of the lives of ordinary people abroad is never shown. North Korean viewers do not see what modern cities look like, what technologies exist in the world, or how ordinary families live in other countries. The second topic is poverty and problems within the country. Issues like economic difficulties, food shortages, and low living standards are not discussed in any broadcast. If natural disasters or economic hardships occur somewhere, they are presented solely from the perspective of the people united and overcame everything thanks to the leadership. The third forbidden topic is desertion and escapes. Although from time to time, expose programs about traitors to the motherland appear on screen, not a single story mentions that people are fleeing the country because living there is difficult. Rather, on the contrary, they are portrayed as weak, deceived by enemies, and ending up in terrible conditions abroad. The fourth forbidden topic is criticism of the authorities. There isn't even a hint of the possibility of a mistake on the part of the leaders. All their decisions are declared to be the only correct ones, and if any changes occur in the country, it is solely because the leadership wisely chooses a new path. Such a system of information control makes North Korean television not just a source of news, but a true tool for creating an artificial reality. After a whole day of watching local channels, it feels like you're in another world. A world where the past is rewritten, the present is controlled, and the future is predetermined. But what remains in your mind after all this? What is it like to spend a day watching North Korean TV? Despite the total control over television, there is a shadow market for illegal content in North Korea. People, risking their freedom, try to find out what is happening outside their country, using the most unexpected methods. One of the most common ways is smuggling flash drives and hard drives with foreign movies and shows. These media enter the country mainly from China, through the black market. They are passed in secret, most often under the cover of night, and those who distribute them use complex systems of code words and trusted individuals. On these flash drives, you can find Korean dramas from South Korea, Western movies, news reports, and even entertainment shows. But the most interesting are the illegal recordings of real North Korean events, filmed by the citizens themselves. Sometimes, in underground markets, you can get videos showing the real living conditions in the country, filmed on phones. Smuggled abroad. Another way is to subscribe to a channel. Underground radio stations. Despite the fact that most radios in North Korea are set only to local frequencies, skilled individuals find ways to modify receivers to catch signals from South Korea, China, and even the United States. Radio broadcasts transmitted by South Korean stations, which talk about the real state of affairs in the world, are especially popular. There are even attempts to organize underground television. In some border areas, people manage to catch South Korean TV signals using homemade antennas. This is incredibly risky, as the discovery of such devices can lead to severe punishment. But for many, it's the only chance to see how the rest of the world lives. Despite strict control measures, people continue to find ways to learn the truth. And although North Korean propaganda seems all-powerful, the human desire to understand the world proves to be stronger. North Korean television is a powerful tool of control, but even it cannot completely shield people from reality. Those who want to know the truth find ways to do so, even if it means risking everything.